we're still underrepresented in decision-making positions in sport organizations. Enforcement of gender equity policies is very poor in the United States, but the progress has been undeniable. In the US, almost half of all medical and law degrees now are being earned by women. 43% of all school and university athletes are women. And there are confident and highly competitive female executives working in the most successful and powerful US corporations who demonstrate the power of gender equity policies. Over 95% of those women participated in sports. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are clear pathways to achieving sport equality: adopting policies with incentives and disincentives, using research-based facts on the benefits of sport to argue for such policies, developing clear definitions of what constitutes sport equality, requiring regular assessments and public reports, and having a well-defined mechanism for dealing with complaints and remedying inequities. We can all do this all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Donna. Appreciate you. Thank you for a very though we're having issues with our network here, so couldn't really hear much of what you said, but I mean, we thank you very much for finding time to join us today for this panel discussion. Thank you very much, Donna. You have a good day. So now call on Shino.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Nancy. Sorry, Shino. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
I'm calling on Nancy. Shino, can you hear me?
I can
Hi,
hear
everyone.
you. Oh, come on. It's Nancy
Hello?
here. Let's hear
Good.
from Nancy.
Okay. Hi,
Good,
Nancy.
good.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi. Can you all hear me?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm glad to be here.
You look fresh this morning.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Actually,
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Yes.
I pulled an all-nighter last night.
Nancy
So,
is an accomplished swimmer.
Nancy, I think you can just go ahead because we can basically not
okay.
hear them.
I thought she was going to start the introduction. Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay with everybody, and share screen. All right.
Okay, she wants to share her screen.
Here we go. Share. All right, you're letting me share.
Hey, everybody. Share her screen.
Can you all see my screen?
Can you see her screen?
No.
Yes, I can.
You can? Okay.
Nobody can see it.
Nobody can see it? Okay. Well, that's okay.
Here it is.
I walk through it.
Yes, okay. You can see it now. You can see it now. Okay. Go on, Nancy.
Okay, everybody. So I actually was going to say a lot of what Donna Lopiato just talked about in terms of what's the history of Title IX and how it is that, you know, what's the strategy that the United States has done to get gender equity in sport, to try to get equality for women in sports. Given that she's given you that talk, I thought another area that I work in is the issue of sexual abuse in sports. And this, of course, affects lots and lots of women. This is an unavoidably uncomfortable topic. There's no way that I can talk about this and, you know, have everybody's heart rate stay at, you know, below 70. It just is. And so I want you, when I first share this information, the first thing people want to say is, well, just kill them, remove their private parts, or 3 is put them in prison forever. And none of those are ever going to happen. So we have to really think strategically about how it is that we can protect athletes in sports. The United States, or the International Olympic Committee, has known since 2007 that participating in sports, particularly elite sports, is actually makes somebody more at risk for abuse. We know that the better the athlete, the more likely they are to be abused from someone within their own entourage. So we need to make sure that we have boundaries between coaches and the people and that they supervise. So I want you to move from the part of your brain that wants to react when you think about abuse to the part that it needs to be like when you're thinking about strategy and you're thinking in the sort of higher levels. Okay, so ordinarily schools do a pretty good job. They have all of the tools at hand. They're not perfect by any means, but to protect students from abuse. They kind of recognize, yes, this is a place of abuse, and we need to make sure there are lots of safeguards in place. We also protect people who are in subordinate positions typically. So we usually like people, bosses and subordinates, or people who have authority over other people. We also protect people when they have a license to do something. So in the United States, I have a law license to practice law. And if I abuse any of my clients, I can lose my license. I can lose the ability to practice law here in the United States. So lawyers, doctors, counselors, teachers, therapists, they all, when they have these hierarchical relationships, they have very strong prohibitions about not having sexual or romantic relationships with somebody that they're subordinate to, right? So you can see these three things here really protect people from abuse. But somehow sport got out from under all of those normal protections. We're going to talk about how it is and why it is that sport that there's more likely to be abuse. One is just the authority and trust. My mother used to say, if you don't know, I won 3 gold medals in the Olympics in swimming. And I was in 8 years on the United States national team, 2-time Olympian, lots of records. And so my mother used to say that she wished that she could get me to work as hard or to get me to sort of, hop to the way that my coach could. So there's an authority there, and there's a trust there with the coach-athlete relationship. 2 is the enormous amount of time that coaches and athletes spend together. Typically, they'll never spend that much time with their parents, except when they're sleeping, if you include the time they're sleeping, but nowhere near the number of awake time. And then there is the appropriate focus on an athlete's body when they're training and competing. And so you can see how quickly something could move from, how's your hamstring? I hope it doesn't get pulled. What kind of stretching exercises do you need? And how quickly it can move into nice butt, right? Into something it crosses a line. And most athletes are fairly young. They may not know where those lines are. And but this appropriate focus on the body that would be inappropriate if you were in a classroom or if you were working in a job or employment or whatnot, you wouldn't be talking about the body quite so much. And 4th is, as I said, it's being gifted. When somebody really wants it, when an athlete wants to be able to succeed, the ability to have a coach and to be able to have somebody that can help you get there is not easy. And so the athlete that really wants it, it's not dissimilar to the children who are in church settings and who really want to be close to God, and they're very obedient. And so they do whatever the church leader says, and it leads to bad things. Okay, so in the United States here, we had a very bad pedophile who because of the way he molested his the children, he the way he molested athletes, he allowed for hundreds of athletes. It was a huge scandal. His name is Larry Nassar, and he happened to molest young women who were exceptionally well-spoken, exceptionally, because there were so many of them, they could band together, and they really provided each other with a lot of network and support. So he's in prison forever, okay? But that's not the issue. The issue is, how do we make sport safer so the next Larry doesn't happen? What is it about sport that makes abuse more likely? Well, one of the things that we did was, in the United States, the Olympic Committee had worked really hard to make sure that they did not have a legal duty to protect athletes from abuse. And so we got a statute passed. We actually got two passed that makes it the responsibility of the Olympic Committee to protect athletes from physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. Okay. So rather than thinking of like, how can we protect people? Because you can't hire enough people to guard over athletes. Instead, you have to think of power, and you have to think of, how do we give athletes power for them? How can they say no to their coach? How can they enforce boundaries and still not lose anything, still be able to make the Olympic team, still be able to travel internationally, etc.? And so in the United States, so right, first we had 1972, we had Title IX. And then in 1978, we had the Ted Stevens Olympic and Amateur Sports Act. And that act was actually designed because athletes were not getting protected in mostly in competition type ways back then. But they created these mechanisms for athletes to have power. One is they gave them an athlete ombudsman. It's supposed to be kind of like a lawyer for athletes. Two is they had a sort of an in-between what the NCAA had, which was no power for athletes, and then what professional athletes had, which was, they have collective bargaining rights, they have labor law rights, they have a lot of power. So they wanted something in between that. So they created this thing called the Athletes Advisory Council. And it's elected by peers, and it is 20% of all committees and board positions. And then there is USOPA, the United States Olympians and Paralympians Association. As soon as somebody sort of finishes their career in the AAC, then they sort of move on. And then you've got this body of older, wiser Olympians and Paralympians who can help with governance and help the next crowd, the next group of athletes who are coming through, right? So that's how it's supposed to happen. What happened was, back in 2010, is you just had a bad person who came in and took all those different power mechanisms away from athletes, leaving athletes without the remedy to be able to say, if an athlete is caught at the Olympic Training Center with holding their cell phone, they get a $200 fine. Now, most of these athletes are poor. In America, half of our Olympic team live below poverty level. They're dependent on family and friends to be able to bring this, to be able to, go for their dreams and be able to make the Olympics. So Scott Blackman did a lot of things to kind of manipulate it so that athletes had no power. Instead of the athlete ombudsman reporting to the athletes, he made the athlete ombudsman report to him. The athlete ombudsman was not allowed to say anything that was different than what the corporation was saying, what the Olympic Committee was saying. And anyway, you can kind of see the things that he did, but essentially it all worked for the purpose of depriving athletes of a real voice and power. And that's what this is exactly what we have been working on. And when we think about how is it that we need to change the Olympic movement to change the structure of the Ted Stevens Olympic and Amateur Sports Act, so that athletes do have this power. Without, I've got too much here. Okay. So here's what not to do. Just don't always depend on criminal background checks. We know that less than 1% of child molesters have a criminal background. Just like an HR department at a business does not rely on the police to always take care of things, a business and an enterprise has an independent responsibility to take care of the members of that group. Number two is getting a vibe during an interview. Molesters are really good at getting people to like them. They are usually very popular people. If you think about it, if they want to molest kids over and over again, they have to be nice. They have to be charming. So don't depend on that.
Hello, Nancy.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
You have 1 minute to round up.
Okay, 1 minute to round up. Okay, so I'm happy to share this. But one of the most important things for you to do when you're thinking about your sports background is, where is the risk? And in the United States, overwhelmingly, it is not the official. It's not the doctor. I mean, we had Larry Nassar. And it's just a tiny slice as other athletes. The major risk is the male coach. And we need to recognize that that's where the risk is. And then to inoculate students, we have at Champion Women, the nonprofit that I run, we have a host of resources. And if you would like to reach out to me, you can do so here. Okay, there's my contact information right there. And I will send you, we've got like a simple 1-pager that you can talk to 7-year-olds about. Because Donna Lopiano was just saying about the wonderful gifts that sport can give somebody. For me, I was sexually assaulted, and sport was where I healed from it. Sport was a place where I kind of put my own body back. And so we need to make sure that while we have all these amazing opportunities, that we recognize what the risk is and do something about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nancy. And we'll be glad to have the document sent to us. The same thing with Dr. Donna, because we're really having a hard time hearing what we're saying because of network. We really appreciate you two for making out time to be with us today. Now, Sheena, I'd like to hear from you, Sheena. But before then,
okay, go ahead, please.
Before then, let's just say a little bit about you. Sheena is a sports journalist with BBC since 2004. He reports for the BBC World Service Radio, TV, and writes regularly for the BBC African Sports website about the continent's top sporting issues and its stars around the world. He's also a regular contributor for New Frame website, a non-for-profit social justice media publication based in Johannesburg. Sheena, it's really nice to have you join us, and I'd like to hear what you have to say. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Juliana. Thanks, Donna. Thanks, Nancy, and thanks to everyone listening. It feels like a huge privilege to be amongst all these beautiful people, and of course, as a man in a world
you are really. Yeah, I have to recognize the fact that you are a real he for she. You are the only man joining us today, so I have to applaud you for that.
Thank you very much for having me as well. Thanks for having me. I think listening to Donna and Nancy really paints a picture and the image of the challenges that we see in sport generally. Even though the emphasis is on the challenges that women actually face, I think we need to understand that I can talk from the point of a journalist who's been covering both men and women's sports. I mean, since 2000. But the first story I did for the BBC was in 2004 when I joined them. It has to do with women, and it has to do with some of the challenges that these women were facing. And since then, I've been able to establish good relationship with both male and female sports personalities. And over the years, some of the things that I've come to realize is that Donna and Nancy, they're speaking from the United States point of view and some of the challenges that they face in terms of what the athletes are facing. And of course, we are talking about women here, and talking about women means there are women in the United States. There are, of course, women in Africa as well. So so to start with, I think inequality and some of these gender issues that we have, it starts from home. It starts from home because most of the people that you see just didn't automatically become people who feel like they need to take advantage of women, who they need to look down on women, they need to consider women to be, kitchen materials, not good enough to be this, not good enough to be that. Because when you fix the home, then you fix the society. The religious homes and what have you will come in, but if you don't train your child at home to start with, then the child will grow up with a mentality to think that a woman is less of a human. A woman energy, a woman's strength is not the same as the man. So basically, we all fail at home when we fail to teach the male child the understanding that you come into a society not as the bigger or the better or the stronger gender. You come in as equal. If you don't have equality at home, you can never have equality outside. And the child that you raise at home is the child that will turn out to be, like Nancy pointed out there, coaches will take advantage of these young athletes. And of course, they will become the leaders in power and what have you. So in all of my years of covering sports, that is where I'm going to focus my area on. I've realized that in Africa in particular, the most successful national side in international football is the Nigerian women's side. But are they represented equally in terms of leadership, in terms of respect, in terms of reward for their achievements, in terms of respect? No, they are not. Why? Because the people in power don't recognize the impact that this women national side have made. What have they done? They are the only women's side in Africa that have gone to every Women World Cup tournament since 1991. They've never missed any edition. And this is a 4-year cycle, the same as the men. What do these ladies, these beautiful women get in return? They are maltreated, they are disrespected, they are owed wages. And look, being owed wages does not even mean that it's just the women, the men too. But you know what? When the men threaten by not participating in training session, the authorities are rushing to reward the men because they don't want embarrassment. These women don't threaten to quit not training, not participating in game. They go all out, unpaid, disrespected. They are ordered up to go. Sometimes their kits are not even in order. Sometimes basic things that they need are not put in order. They go out. What do? They conquer. They've won the continental title 9 times. The men have only won 3 times. They are spoiled. When the men wins, they are spoiled with national honors. They are giving houses. They are giving, huge amount of money. When the women team wins, what happened? They have to protest publicly to be paid their own allowances while they were competing in the same competition. They have won the same competition. They will be begging for them to be recognized, for them to be seen by the same president, by the same leaders who are quick to reward the men. How do we end up in this situation in Nigeria? I've been investigating, and I've come to realize that it's not about having just women, in women in the authority, that is the Nigerian Football Federation, in the women's department, having a woman in charge of the women's department. That's not just the be it and see all, because most of the women, I'm sorry, with due respect to some of them who have held these offices, they've not been looking out for the women. Are we now saying gender equality? You have a woman, having a woman in charge of women's affairs in football authority does not necessarily even help the women. Most times the women come to me and they say, this woman is actually the problem. And I'm saying, we all clamor to have a woman in charge of the women's affair, but these same women are enablers. They are the same people who let this authority get away with some of the atrocities that they commit. I call it atrocity. I'm sorry about my choice of words, but these are exactly what it is. These are things that people should not see in 2022, in 2010, at any time, at any point in time. You guys are talking about the laws in the US that are just being capitalized on by the women national side now to bring back. In Nigeria, in Africa, these rules are not the same. There are no rules protecting the girl child playing sports. There are no rules protecting the women national side playing sports. It's the same in football. It's the same in basketball. The basketball team, they won the continental title, the FIBA Africa tournament. They had to openly protest to be recognized. Why do we have this situation? It's because the people who are meant to run sports and protect the women are not doing what they are supposed to do. Most of the money that the men team get in terms of funding from FIFA, they get and participate and say, oh, we are protecting equality. We are doing this, we are doing that when it comes to equality. But these things are not done. They collect the money. They don't protect girls who have different sexual orientation. In Nigeria, same-sex marriage is forbidden. You go to jail for 14 years if you're found like that. But there are women who have been forced out of sport simply because the society itself, now we are talking about home, we're talking about society, all of these things does not even grow to the top like this. So these women are being forced out of sport, or they are forced to be quiet about their sexual orientation, about their sexual preference. They can't express their feelings, they can't express anything. Some of these challenges it's gone beyond just paying women the same amount of money. You need to give them the same equal treatment that you give to men. That is the only way you can get this, and it starts from home, in my opinion. Raise a child, boy child or a girl child. Let them understand that you are not bigger than the other person. In Africa, a girl is taught how to cook. A boy is not taught how to cook because the boy will always believe that a woman will make food for him. That is a societal flaws that we need to correct. If we don't correct it from the top, the boy grow up to think that the girl will always make him food. But let me tell you the fact. The fact here is this. Our basketball women's side are the most successful in the country. Our women football side are the best on the continent overall, be it men, be it women. But this issue will continue in sports if authorities are not held accountable for some of these things that they do. Not just have a woman, have someone who care about equality. Equality should go the same to a man, the same to a woman. Let the man face the same, reward that a woman will get if she becomes successful. I mean, I don't have any speech put down like you guys where you have to share the screen. I don't have anything to say. I'm speaking from my heart because these are some of the things that I
You
experienced
have two
as a
more
journalist.
minutes to round up, Shina. You have
So
two
to
more
quickly
minutes.
round up, yes, to quickly round up before you kick me out, Juliana, I think it's important for us to raise our child properly and let them understand that in society, everyone is equal. It is going to be a challenging narrative when you have the media, when you have the society believe that the men's sport is more important than the women's sport. In my opinion, we need to end this narrative because in Africa, the Nigerian women are the most successful. In South Africa, the Bayana are doing very well. In Zambia, they are all doing very well. And we need to continue to start from home to encourage equality. If you don't give it at home, you can't get it outside in the society. These same men who become leaders today, who become coaches, who take advantage of girls, who take advantage of boys, are from the home. And if we don't raise them well from home, equality will be something that will just be a mirage. We'll just be talking about it. We'll never achieve it. So it has to go around to everyone from home to the top. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Thank you so much for your time. I mean, in the course of your remark, you were able to touch on some of the questions we wanted to ask you. But one important question, even though you had touched on it, I would like to know, how do you think even though you've touched on it, but I think it would be important if you can emphasize on it. how can equality be achieved in sports? I mean, you made mention of the Super Falcons, for instance, going to the World Cup 9 times, you know, but at the same time, they are not respected. They are not being treated equally as their male counterparts. How do you think this can be pushed for them to be equally recognized?
I think importantly, we have to start from those who actually go into sports. What exactly are you looking to achieve? When they all come, they come with manifesto. I will do this for women's sports. I will do that for women's sports. You need to hold people accountable for some of their actions. And holding them accountable is if you know some of the things, some of the challenges we've talked about now, they are not new to you and I. They are not new to Nancy. They are not new to Donna. These are challenges that are worldwide, that are global. These people, like I think it was Nancy that pointed out, she was talking about punishment that should be given out to people. I think when you are saying that you're going into an office and these are the things that you want to achieve, first and foremost, you must be held accountable for some of the actions that you participate in when you come into power. One. Secondly, I also think women, I don't like the word when people call them victims. Victims, they are not. Survivors, they've been survivors in a system that has not been good to them. I think we need to encourage more women to speak out about some of the challenges that they are facing and for them to recognize their own power. You need to also build, you need to build a woman who has self-confidence, who is not pushed by some of the issues in the society. Because if you face the society, we've talked about challenges that they face all the time. It's a very difficult thing to say, these are the breakdowns of how this can be achieved and all of that. We need to face our reality. Reality in the US is different from reality in Africa. In Africa, officials will tell you, yeah, I will do this, I will do that. But if they are not held accountable, then this issue will continue to go ahead. And if the women are not encouraged to speak more and understand the power that they have in, shaping the narrative, shaping their own strength, and understanding the impact they've made in the society, we will continue to talk about women who don't even know their own place. I think we need to encourage the women more. We need to let them understand their power. We also need to hold authorities accountable. Those are the feasible things that I see. If I talk about all these things in the textbook on how to punish people and all that, you and I know the society here. The rich man is the big man. The man with power is the powerful guy. But when these people are held accountable, if journalists and everyone continues to emphasize about the failures and some of the things that they've done, I think people will be embarrassed and ashamed of some of the things they've done, and probably they might rethink some of the ways they've been treating women in society.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chino. Is Donna?
Yes. I cannot hear you.
Okay.
And now I can. And now I can't.
Okay.
Now I can.
Okay. I'd like to ask you one question, even though we're struggling to hear you because of network, but I would like you to speak on how sports personnel have been able to contribute to promoting equality in sports.
I don't think there's any question that whenever we have an Olympic or nationally televised event, create a hero, a gold medalist, someone who is admired, when they speak out, that probably the most underused influence in terms of American society or the world society is to hear the voice of the athlete. So the media giving athletes the platform to speak, the media not being just applauding athlete performances, but being investigative reporters, the media doing the job of media, not promoters, uncovering some of these transgressions. It's bringing attention to them in some way. And I think the athlete voice and the media voice the athlete voice is silenced. The media is more worried about, the sport organization or the athlete not getting mad at them and not letting them interview, so they don't engage in their investigative reporting responsibility. Sheena, I'm sorry if I'm not meaning you, right? So I think those are two big things that we can do or work on.
Thank you, Donna. Maybe the two of you can take this next question. I'd like to know what strategy can be used what strategy will you advise to be used to ensure gender equality in sports? I know Shino touched on that. Maybe Donna, I'd like you to go ahead. What strategy will you advise?
I mentioned public policy as a strategy, and I'm a firm believer that is true. One of the things I didn't mention that was true about the success of public policy is having people like Sheena, having people in Congress who were identified as being champions of women, who were fathers of daughters, who were willing to speak out. And these were people who were in very high positions of authority. They were the chair of appropriations committees, the committees that distributed money, or the judiciary. They were very well respected. And to the extent that we can reach out to men with power who can become allies and spokespeople for the cause, they also will become protectors, because the public will hesitate to take issue with someone who has power. So I think cultivating those people in Congress is a really good strategy.
Thank you, Donna. Do you think maybe both of you, Donna and Shino, can take this one? Do you think if we have more athletes come out to talk about their challenges in sports, the issue of inequality can be addressed? Those that suffer inequality, do you think if the athletes come out more to speak about it, it can help address the situation?
Yeah, I'd like
Donna,
to hear, I'd like to hear Sheena on this, in that I really feel.
Unfortunately, it's like Sheena is out.
Oh, okay.
It's back. It's back. It's back.
Sheena is
back.
important.
Sheena,
you are important.
Yes.
The media is important to get out the athletes.
Did you get my question?
Yeah, I think I got your question. I was thrown out. Sorry. If you repeat it, I'm not too sure I got. You said what are the strategies,
I said, do you think if athletes that suffer injustice, in their teams, do you think if they come out to speak more about their experiences, it will help address the issue of inequality in sports?
Absolutely. But we also need to make a conducive environment available for these athletes to open up and talk. Some of them have had the opportunity to come out about, for instance, sexual abuse, and it didn't end well for them because, they were all alone and they were a lone voice. And as soon as that is not made available for them, it becomes a struggle. You need to give them a conducive environment. They need to have people they can trust. They need to open up to people they can actually, people who truly, honestly want to fight their cause. In the course of my conversation, I mentioned something earlier about an athlete who was a Nigerian footballer who was thrown out of the team simply because she was asking for equal treatment for the same. So basically, they were sharing bonuses for the footballers at the World Cup. She requested that those who were part of the qualifying should also be rewarded. In fact, they should be prioritized because they are not there to fight for themselves. They should be given equal share from what they've made from this. And eventually, this after this incident, she was thrown out of the national side for 2 years. And other footballers went on with life. Nothing happened. And when I spoke to the woman who was in charge of the head of women's football, what she told me was, rather than focus on what we are talking about, the subject. She's focusing on the athlete and our way of going about protesting. She said, why did she have to do that? She didn't need to do that. So to break down your answer now, to break down the answer, it is that we need to create a fair hearing, an enabling environment, and conducive one for those athletes to open up about their challenges. And we also need to punish hearing officers. If you don't punish officials who are hearing, who are responsible for this, these athletes will say, after all, I will talk and nothing will happen. But when they are seeing that someone is being punished, maybe jailed, maybe punished or banned for their action, these athletes will be more encouraged to come out and want to speak freely about some of their challenges.
And just to add to that to have a policy that gives protection to whistleblowers, that yes, where a whistleblower can speak to an athlete ombudsman and have the ombudsman protect them from publicly being exposed and punished. That's a very important policy.
Absolutely, you're right about that, because when whistleblowers are not protected, then it becomes a problem too.
Thank you very much, Donna. Thank you, Shino. This has been such an engaging session, an enlightening one, and I really want to thank you for sparing time, especially Donna, because I know it's quite early where you are. So thank you for sparing the time to be with us today. Appreciate you. So I would like to call on the Fame ED now to take over and just do formal roundup. Thank you for allowing me moderate this session. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us, Juliana.
Thank you.
And it's good to see you again, Sheena.
Nice meeting you, Sheena.
Same here, Donna.
Okay.
Wow, that was so interesting. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being part of this.
Hi,
that was so intense. I mean, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. Thank you for the suggestions, because we always say this. People talk about the problems every time, forgetting to talk about solutions. And I'm happy that as we were able to identify the challenges, at the same time, we're able to also provide solution to this. And at the end of the day, what we all discuss here today will be written out in an article that will be shared for people who were unable to watch. We'll share with sports stakeholders, administrators, experts, coaches who could think, okay, they could take one or two things away from this panel. My brother Shino, thank you. Dr. Donna, we are very privileged. We are highly honored to have you. Thank you so much for taking out your time. And for everybody watching from around the world, and this is the end of Women and Sport Dialogue 2022. We usually have it every year. We had it last year and in Nigeria, and it was about Olympics, because last year was the Olympics year. So we talk about the women going to the Olympics. What about the fate of the women? And it was a physical one we had in 2020, excuse me. 2020, we had this physically. Due to COVID last year, we didn't have anything. So this is for 2022. Hopefully next year, we'll be able to bring Dr. Donna to Nigeria to speak at the Women and Sport Dialogue. And thank you so much, very much indeed. And I wish you all the best going forward. And I'll be in touch. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye. Bye.